Welcome back to another episode of the Renovation Nation show, brought to you by Red Maples, your go-to source for institutional style property management of small family rentals. I'm your host, Nathan Bush, and each show I share with you lessons I learned from growing my real-life real estate business. Today's episode, we're talking all about that terminology right over there, the biggest lie real estate investors are programmed to believe. The biggest lie real estate investors are programmed to believe. We've designed this show to answer questions you have about real estate investing. And if you want more of these types of resources regularly, you can head on over to www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, or check out the other resources in the show description. And if you have any questions during the entire length of the show, I'd be happy to share some of the answers that I have along the show with you. If we have a lot of audience participation, the show might go a while. If we don't, I am excited to share with you the information that we have, because I have got a jam-packed show for you. All right, guys, and I would be remiss if I didn't take a second and remind you that this show is brought to you by Red Maples. So the Mind Renovation Nation show is brought to you by Red Maples. This is your go-to source for institutional style property management of small multifamily rentals. Now, if you want to, you can scan that QR code and we can complete a complete assessment of your rental portfolio to better help you be prepared for what to do with your rentals. Why are you not making the money? Why is it not as profitable as what you would want it to be? Head on over to www.redmaples.com/assessment, and I'd be happy to get one of those assessments started for you. Right? Do you guys remember this movie, The Big Short? The Big Short. Let's hop into today's topic. In the movie The Big Short, there is a bar scene, if you remember. And during that bar scene, there is I guess it's a placard that's on the wall, and it says this: the truth is like poetry. And most people hate poetry. It's Adam McKay. That was a writer. He's a famous writer of The Big Short, producer. He was also a writer for Saturday Night Live for a long time. And so that is what we're talking about, the big lie today, that real estate investors are programmed to believe. What is the one big lie? Well, I would be remiss if I didn't take a second and ask you to think about money. Think about your first memory of money. Think back to the first time that you ever had interactions with money. What was that memory? What did you remember? What were you doing at the time? I can remember the first time I ever even thought about money was my grandparents for Christmas decided to get me a Christmas tree. And on that Christmas tree were little rolled up bills. And as I unfolded each bill, I saw a dollar bill and a couple more dollar bills. And I would unroll the next one and I saw a $5 bill and a $10 bill, a $20 bill. And I remember the bill at the top. The bill at the top was a $100 bill. Now, I think the premise is that they were trying to communicate at that time that money doesn't grow on, I'll let you fill in the blank. Money doesn't grow on what? Yeah, you're correct, trees. However, money is made from trees. So the fact that we start this programming from such a young age about money and the concepts of money all build up to this one big lie about money that real estate investors have been programmed to believe. And so today we're going to uncover the truth behind the lie that real estate investors have been programmed to believe. But which famous entrepreneur said this? Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Which famous real estate investor said this? Was it Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Warren Buffett, or Richard Branson? What do you think? Put in the comments who you think was the famous real estate investor that said risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Who do you think it was? Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Warren Buffett, or Richard Branson? If you guessed Warren Buffett, you would be correct. Warren Buffett famously said risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. And I think that that is the entire concept of what I wanted to put together as we talked about this show today, the one big risk that real estate investors have been programmed to believe. And so if you're wondering what is that one big risk that real estate investors have been programmed to believe, it's this. The higher the risk, the higher the what? Throw it in the chat. If you're watching live online right now, what do you remember from school, from economics class, when they taught you the higher the risk, the higher the... If you wrote reward inside of the chat box, that would be what we've been programmed to believe. And that would be the biggest lie real estate investors have ever been programmed to believe. Because it's not the higher the risk, the higher the reward. It is the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. Risk is risk, guys. And so understanding what you are risking and how you're risking it is an important aspect of understanding what you've been programmed. Now, when I say the word program, let me define a couple of terms for you. So what does the word program mean? Program means to arrange according to a plan or a schedule. In the event of a computer or a machine, it's to provide with coded instructions for automatic performance of a task. So you've been programmed, you've been arranged or coordinated to plan or schedule. You've been automatically coded by the powers that be to believe the higher the risk, the higher the reward. But that's not true. It's the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. Risk is always risk. That is by definition what it is. And so if you believe that the higher the risk, the higher the reward, you're falling right into the automatic programming. And when I say programming, I meant specifically what the definition was. And when I say believe, I mean specifically what the definition of believe is. To accept something is true. To feel sure of a truth. There's a couple of words here that are so important and so impactful that the entire show has been built around the fact that you've been automatically coded to accept this one big lie. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. Today's show is going to be all about how do we understand the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure, and reducing that risk. See, John Maxwell, in his infinite wisdom and 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, put together the law of the ladder. If you guys remember back to the 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, we've talked about it on a number of different podcasts. The law of the ladder states this: character growth determines the height of your personal growth. Character growth determines the height of your personal growth. And what's crazy is, in almost every survey conducted, according to James Kuzner and Barry Posner in their book Leadership Challenge, almost every survey conducted, honesty has been selected more often than any other leadership characteristic. Honesty. So we're trying to be leaders in our field. We're trying to be great in the real estate nation that we're trying to build. And it's determined that honesty is the number one characteristic above any other that's most important when people are surveyed. Norman Schwarzkopf had this to say: 99% of leadership failures are a failure of character. Failure of character. So we're talking today all about the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. And I've just shown to you that failure often comes from character issues. Character issues. Where does leadership failures come from? If you're running a business, you're leading that business, you're trying to grow a real estate investment business, you're the leader. The number one challenge and the biggest lie that you're believing is the higher the risk, the higher the reward. But taking risks as a leader doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have higher rewards. In fact, taking risks as a leadership taking a risk as a leader in leadership of the business that you're operating, taking risks means that you have a higher likelihood of failure. And that failure has been derived, we found from some leadership experts, the authors of Leadership Challenge, and also Norman Schwarzkopf, U.S. General, said that leadership failures come from failure of character. So it seems to me that we can deduce that the higher the risk, the lower the character of the leader. Now, I've got some information to share with you about how we can reduce that risk. But before we do that, let me thank my second sponsor, Web Insurance. Are you paying too much for insurance? Are you covered correctly? Look, they can review your current coverages and make sure that you have the correct policies at the most affordable prices. And what Web Insurance clients love about them is every year they proactively shop different insurance carriers to make sure you're with the most affordable carrier at the most appropriate coverages. From contractor to real estate investor, let Web Insurance be your guide. Head on over to www.webinsurance.com to get a quote. And back to the programming. All right, so we're talking all today about risk. What a great sponsor for risk when it comes to insurance. What is our insurance, guys, when it comes to reducing risk of doing real estate deals then? What is the insurance policy that we can purchase when it comes to reducing risk in our real estate investments? How about this? There's two questions today when reducing risk that I want to ask yourself. First of all, how do we reduce it? And the second question I want to answer is, what is a greater risk, money or people involved? See, if we're talking about investing, we're talking about risk. But what is a greater risk, money or the people involved? So we're going to answer these two questions today. We're going to start with talking all about how to reduce risk. Because if we can reduce risk, we have a higher likelihood of success. So the lower the risk, the higher the likelihood of success. Do you see how those two play hand in hand? And what becomes extremely risky, according to the leadership experts that I studied and I presented to you, is a lack of character. And so we want to identify, how do we beat these two things? Well, let's get into it. So the first question I have to ask you if you want to reduce risk is, what is your relationship with the truth? What is your relationship with the truth? Are you living based upon feelings or actual facts? Are you living based upon feelings or actual facts? Remember, we just spoke about the concept of belief. And what's really crazy is the definition of belief is to accept something as true or to feel sure of the truth. Belief requires a feeling, an acceptance. But the question that I just asked you is, are you living based upon your feelings or facts? What is your relationship with the truth? If you want to reduce risk, you've got to be in alignment with the truth. Truth has to own you. And if truth doesn't own you, you're living in la la land. You're living in a world, make-believe and fictitious information, and you're living in a world of very high risk. You're outside of alignment with truth. It says in the book, the truth shall set you free. So are you being deceived or lied to by somebody? Look, if we're going to reduce risk, we first have to live by actual facts and not feelings. The second thing we need to do to reduce risk is to see if we're being deceived or lied to by somebody who has an intent to harm us, Your relationship with the truth matters. And so what is your relationship with the truth? Are you being deceived or lied to by somebody who has something to gain or benefit from doing a transaction with you? Deceit and lies and oppression and leverage are all tools used against the truth. See, if you have a good relationship with truth, you live in facts. You can cut through the lies. You can also follow the math. Does the math make sense? See, that's the wonderful thing about this world, is one of the things that we have determined and have found out that truth comes from is the numbers. The numbers don't lie, and the numbers tell a story, and the numbers help you to determine what is truth and what is fake. What is the truth of the deal or the transaction that you're working in? See, the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. Who told you the higher the risk, the higher the reward? Where did that come from? Of course, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, at the top of the show, we talked about how the higher the risk, the higher the reward came from your finance classes in school, or your economic classes in school, or your business classes in school. And as the consumer, what they were teaching you is when the bank takes risks on you, you're allowed a higher interest rate. My question to you is the bank actually taking a risk? And is the risk as high as what they're oppressing you with? See, because another thing I learned in the good book was the borrower is the servant to the lender. And so I have to ask the question, have you done the math? What is the actual risk associated with the transaction and the deal? And what are you missing from the deal? See, if you don't have a great relationship with the truth, then you're going to be missing things because you're not seeking out the truth in every situation. And so you don't want to be missing the truth from something you're trying to accomplish or a deal you're trying to do as a real estate investor. So what are you missing from the deal? What is being hidden from you? And why are you not able to achieve these goals? See, when I was younger, I used to be into magic tricks. I remember my mother and father and grandmother taking me to the magic store to buy different tricks to be able to allow me to go on and put on shows for people. Could be today why I don't mind standing up and doing public speaking or standing in front of a camera, is because I had some training when I was younger doing magic. Here's what I know about magic. One hand is always distracting you, while the other hand is actually doing the work. The truth in magic is hidden. Well, in the real world, there are relational illusionists out there who are trying to deceive you and trick you into buying something or doing a real estate deal in a number of different ways. One of those ways might be when you borrow money to buy a home, that banker might say to you, well, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So they need to charge you more money in order for you to borrow that money because they're taking a risk on you. Look, they wouldn't be lending you the money if they thought it was risky. They're actually trying to bet on a sure thing. They're not being deceived. They're the one pulling the trick in this situation. So what are you missing from the deal? Do you have a good relationship with the truth? Do you love the truth so much? Do you love the truth so much that if you have to do 100% of it, if you don't get the truth, or you're willing to walk away? Do you love the truth so much that you have to get 100% of it, or you're willing to walk away from a transaction? See, I'm trying to help you guys understand. When you understand the truth in a situation, you reduce the risk to yourself from doing a deal. Having a healthy relationship with the truth, having a love of the truth, seeking out the truth, understanding the truth, knowing all of the facts of something before making a decision. Having the truth, it doesn't mean that you don't utilize intuition. It doesn't mean that you can't make decisions on things that you haven't seen. It just means that you've been programmed to believe this one big lie that the higher the risk, the higher the reward. And so you think that you don't need to seek out the truth, that you need to take risks, giant risks, in order to be successful. And I'm here to beg a difference with you. I'm here to beg for your understanding of the concept of pay attention to the truth, because the truth is the thing that reduces the risk and sets you free from the oppression. See, dreams are not truth. Feelings are not truth. Pictures are not the truth. What you trust in a deal is the truth. What you trust in a deal is the truth. So what can you trust? What can you trust? Here's one thing I know you can trust. You can trust the person you become over time. See, if you get better, you know that you're going to have a reduction in risk. And I'm here to prove that to you in just 1 second. But before I do that, I want to deal with the second concept that we talked about. So the first concept that we talked about was, how do you reduce risk? That's the first thing I wanted to help you understand, is that the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. So how do you reduce risk? Number one, you have a good relationship with it, with truth. You have a good relationship with truth. The second question I wanted to answer today was, what is a greater risk, money or people involved? So we got to answer that question. How do you become great as a real estate investor? I'll answer it like that. How do you become great as a real estate investor? Take a second and answer the question in the chat right now. If you're watching live or you're watching on replay, take a second and actually do this. How do you become a great real estate investor? What is it that you need to do? Well, one of the things that we talked about was seek out the truth in every single deal to reduce your risk. What else do you need to do in order to become a great real estate investor? You know, that can be an obligating question. It can show where you're at in your character development by the answer to that question. Because for me, one of the things that I've learned along the way is that you become a great real estate investor, you become great among real estate investors by taking less risk and serving more people. Have a great relationship with the truth and loving more people. So how do you grow this aspect of yourself so that you can love people more often? How do you grow this aspect of yourself of having a better relationship with the truth so you can become a great real estate investor? Number one, be teachable. Number two, be willing to serve others. What do you wish other people would do? What do you wish they'd do? Can you take action and be the first person to do it? Man, I sure wish that they would lower the price in this deal. Well, are you going to offer more on the price? Be the person who takes action and you go first. You do it first for them. And then lastly, be grateful. Be teachable, be willing to serve others, and be grateful. This helps you understand the answer to the question that I just asked, which was, what is a greater risk? The money or the people involved? And if you're going to be the person involved in a real estate transaction, I highly encourage you to be the person that's the good person from the beginning by loving other people. See, if you seek out the truth and you love other people, you're in one of the best positions in a real estate transaction. But how many people are trying the opposite? They're trying to deceive. They're trying to conceal the truth. They're trying not to give all of the information because they're afraid the other person is not going to be a good person, unwilling to serve, unwilling to be grateful. We cannot be part of the problem, guys. We got to be part of the solution in this real estate community that we're building. And with that said, I'm going to take a second and thank my third sponsor of the show, BBC Global Services, outsourcing that helps people like you focus on your superpowers. Simple and on your terms with no term limits. Get a free consultation. Head over to bbcglobalservices.com. What we love about working with BBC Global Services at Red Maples, guys, is that they've got a great leadership team there that cares about your business and wants to see you succeed. And so they're the type of company that we enjoy doing business with. I highly encourage you to head over to bbcglobalservices.com and see if they would be the right fit for you. Now, back to this whole concept of going first and being the type of person you want to do business with. Tony Evans, radio broadcaster and pastor, had this to say: if you want a better world, composed of a better nations, inhabited by better states, filled with better countries, counties, made up of better cities, comprised of better neighborhoods, illuminated by better churches, populated by better families, then you'll have to start by becoming a better person. Isn't that so true? We go into real estate transactions and we forget the type of person that we need to be in order to have a better world. And I yield to you in this show today, and I'm making a plea to the public, people that are watching, people that will watch on replay, my friends, my family. Go into this world, seek out the truth, love the truth, and love others. If you can do that, you won't be deceived, and you'll reduce your risk. And you'll say the higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. The lower the risk, the better the opportunity is for you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. But the only way to reduce the risk is by improving your character. Remember what John Maxwell said in the 15 Laws of Leadership? He said character growth determines the height of your personal growth. Are you constantly working on your character so that you can reach and achieve the altitudes that you're trying to achieve in your life? Are you constantly working on your character so you can become great as a real estate investor? And if you're going to work on your character, remember, guys, be teachable, be willing to serve others, and be grateful for where you're at and what you have. I love this quote by Doug Fireball. Doug Fireball is a speaker, a trainer, and a multi-level marketing expert. I heard him say one time, achievement to most people is something you do. To the high achiever, it's something you are. Whatever you want in this life, you need to become the type of person who can have the thing that you're wanting. Not through deception, not through deceit, but through great character. And the better your character, the lower the risk. And so I'm going to conclude the show by asking you one final thought-provoking question as we've talked about this concept of the one big lie real estate investors have been programmed to believe. What are you doing every day to reduce your risk and develop the habit of character growth? If you have been working on yourself and putting in the personal development work, what are those things that you've been doing? What books have you been reading? What seminars have you been going to? What have you been studying? What's your habits with your spiritual life? What are the things that you've put in place to help you reduce this risk in your life? To help you seek the truth and love others. I'd love to know about it, love to learn more about it from you in the comments. Go ahead and throw it in the comments. And that will significantly help me on my journey as I get better at this character growth, because I can see what others are doing and see how they're sharpening themselves. And hopefully that helps to sharpen me. Question I have for you around this whole concept of what are you doing every day to reduce your risk and develop the habit of character growth is, are you more focused on growing? Sub-question number one, are you more focused on growing on the outside or the inside? Are you more focused on gathering more real estate assets or are you more focused on becoming a better person? Which one's more risky? What's on your calendar in the upcoming months to serve others? Are you focused more on the outside or the inside? Are you improving your character and seeking out the truth in all of your real estate endeavors? So, what are you doing every day to reduce your risk and develop the habit of character growth? Guys, the 30 minutes flew by. I love talking about core values and things that help us achieve our goals and helping you avoid the one big lie you've been programmed to believe. The higher the risk, the higher the likelihood of failure. And that, Renovation Nation, brings us again to the end of another episode. I'm Nathan Bush, your guide of this real estate business growth journey. Remember, just like plants need the right air, soil, and care, our minds need the right environment to build a life of purpose, of passion, and of growth. Don't forget to get your citizenship to Mind Renovation Nation. You can follow us by subscribing to my email list. Head over to www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe. Also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and share the show. When you share the show, it lets your friends know that they can join us every Friday at noon on this channel for business real estate growth. Join me next time for more insights, inspiration, and a little bit of that nation building spirit that drives us to create a community united by shared values, purpose, and a commitment to leaving a lasting legacy. Until then, guys, keep building, keep growing, and let's lead more than 25,000 souls to a life of values-based investing. In our journey of Mind Renovation Nation, we often talk about personal growth, ethical leadership, and making impactful choices. Well, values-based investing is an extension of that philosophy. It's about being a steward, not only of our finances, but of our values and vision for the future. Signing off from the heart of St. Louis, stay blessed, stay inspired, and remember, every day is a chance to renovate your nation. Bye, guys.